Hold still. Don't move. I'm right here. Charlie Dawson's voice cracked slightly, but there was steel beneath the worry. Rusty, his small golden retriever, barked nervously at the shadows moving between the trees, and Charlie tightened his grip on the old prepaid phone Margaret had given him, feeling the cold plastic against his palm like a lifeline. The woods behind his grandmother's house had always been an adventure playground for him, a place of secret trails and fallen logs. Today, though, something felt wrong, and he knew it. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, thick with the quiet that comes after a morning drizzle. Mist curled low to the ground, twisting around the tree trunks like ghosts in the half-light. Charlie followed the soft crunch of leaves, the bark of Rusty echoing faintly against the trunks, until a voice, weak and raspy, carried through the fog. "Please, someone, help me." Charlie froze. His heart jumped into his throat and the phone felt heavier in his hand. He had been taught never to run from trouble, ever since Margaret reminded him of what her own father had once said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Charlie. It's moving forward when you're scared." He swallowed hard, and despite the tremor in his legs, he took a careful step toward the voice. "Before we continue, take a moment. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below. I'd love to know." The voice came again, fainter now. "Help! Please, don't leave me." Charlie's stomach twisted, but he pressed forward, stepping over a fallen log and into a small clearing where the fog hung thick. There, chained to an enormous oak tree, was a woman. Her dark hair clung to her face, matted with dirt and blood, and her eyes, wide with shock and pain, locked on his. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm Charlie," he stammered. I'm here to help. Are you okay? Don't, don't come any closer. Please. It's not safe." Charlie shook his head, resolute. "I can't leave you. I need to help you." He glanced at Rusty, who had stopped barking, sensing the tension in the air. Charlie reached into his pocket and held up the phone. "I'm calling for help. Help is coming." The woman, whose name he would soon learn was Evelyn Cross, blinked at him. Her lips trembled, a shadow of a smile brushing across her pale face. You shouldn't. You're just a boy." "I'm 8, Charlie said firmly, "but I'm not leaving." Carefully, he dialed 911, his small fingers pressing the worn buttons, his voice steady as he recounted what he saw. A woman chained to a tree, injuries on her arm and shoulder, a bottle of water in his backpack. He gave precise directions through the misty forest, describing landmarks, the twisted pine at the trail's start, the fallen log near the creek, the mossy stone that marked the edge of the clearing. "Name?" the dispatcher asked, her tone clipped but professional. "Evelyn Cross," Charlie said. The phone went quiet for a moment, then the dispatcher's voice softened, caught with recognition. You found Evelyn Cross?" Charlie didn't understand, but he felt a surge of importance in the knowledge that the woman in front of him was somehow more than just a stranger. He knelt beside her, removing the cap from his water bottle. "Here," he said softly, tilting it to her lips. "Drink." Evelyn's hands trembled as she took the bottle, and for the first time in what seemed like hours, her body relaxed just enough to sip. Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice raw. "Because you need it," Charlie said simply. Rusty nuzzled his leg, sensing the relief. Evelyn's eyes, glimmering with a mix of gratitude and disbelief, softened. "Your family, who are you with?" "My grandma, Margaret Dawson. She's home," Charlie replied. "She always says, 'Don't walk past trouble if you can help.'" He shrugged, a small smile breaking through his concern. Evelyn managed a faint chuckle despite the pain. Tell them I didn't break," she whispered hoarsely, just as a uniformed deputy's flashlight beam cut through the fog, announcing the arrival of help. The deputy, Sheriff Cole, froze when he heard her name. "Evelyn Cross," he said, his voice low and tense, signaling a storm far bigger than the woods around them. Charlie felt a shiver run through him. As the deputy prepared Evelyn for transport, she turned to Charlie. "Say it again," she insisted. "Tell them I didn't break." Charlie nodded, repeating the words carefully, his voice steady and proud. Evelyn Cross didn't break. He didn't know it yet, but this simple act of staying, of caring, had already begun to ripple far beyond this forest clearing. And somewhere, far away, a man with 500 members under his command was learning that his wife was alive, and that a small boy had shown courage no one expected. The mist swirled around the clearing, carrying the sounds of the forest and the faint rush of a distant engine. Charlie held Evelyn's hand, offering warmth and calm as the first rays of sun began to pierce the fog, knowing he had made the right choice. And as the helicopter's rotors approached in the distance, Charlie Dawson realized that the quiet bravery of one boy could change everything. Charlie Dawson walked beside the ambulance as it wound its way through the twisting dirt roads behind his grandmother's property. Rusty trotted along the edge of the forest, ears perked, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. The early morning mist had begun to lift, revealing the dense canopy above, glistening with residual raindrops. Every leaf shimmered, every branch seemed to hold its breath. Charlie kept his hand lightly resting on Evelyn Cross's, holding her steady as paramedics moved swiftly around her. The sound of his own heartbeat filled his ears, mixing with the quiet hum of the ambulance engine and the rustling of the trees. He felt a strange weight in his chest, a mixture of fear and pride, knowing he had stayed. The world outside this forest was vast and unknown, and yet, in his small act of courage, Charlie sensed the first stirrings of something far larger than himself. Inside the ambulance, Evelyn's injuries were being treated with practiced efficiency. A paramedic cleaned a scrape on her shoulder, while another wrapped a splint around her wrist. She winced, but each small gesture of care seemed to restore a little of her strength. Charlie, still clutching his grandmother's old phone, watched silently, memorizing every detail. The way Evelyn's hair fell across her forehead, the slight tremble in her hands, the determination in her eyes despite everything. "She's strong," one paramedic murmured to another, glancing at Charlie, "and she's lucky to have this little guy here." Charlie barely understood the words, but he felt a swelling of purpose. He had made the right choice, and yet somewhere deep in the back of his mind, he wondered what would happen next. Because he had heard of people, important people, who moved swiftly when their family was in danger. People who were powerful, well-connected, and not to be underestimated. Meanwhile, miles away, in a city buzzing with the low hum of motorcycles, Victor Cross, president of the Iron Ravens MC, was awakened by a call that made his blood run cold. "Evelyn, found alive, chained in the woods." The words repeated in his mind, each one sharp as a knife. Victor's massive hands gripped the edge of his desk as he listened to the dispatcher relay the details. His club's members, nearly 500 strong, were scattered across the state, loyal and ready. But Victor's mind was fixed on the small boy who had stayed by his wife's side. "Charlie Dawson," Victor repeated under his breath, astonishment mixing with admiration. "An 8-year-old, and he stayed." The Iron Ravens MC wasn't just a motorcycle club. It was a network, a brotherhood built on loyalty, discipline, and action. And now a young boy, one he didn't know, had acted in a way that demanded respect. Victor immediately began issuing instructions. Every available chapter, every rider who could reach Asheville quickly, prepare to move. But first, find this boy. Thank him. Ensure he knows the impact of what he's done. Back at the Dawson home, Margaret watched as Charlie recounted every detail to Sheriff Cole. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the realization that her grandson's actions had put them both at the center of something far bigger than the morning woods. "You couldn't just leave her, could you, Charlie?" she asked gently. Charlie shook his head. I couldn't, Grandma. She needed someone to stay, and I was there." Margaret exhaled slowly, a mixture of pride and concern. "Courage before fear," she murmured, echoing the lesson she had instilled in him. Charlie repeated it silently in his head, feeling the weight of those words settle into his bones. Sheriff Cole stepped forward, his expression serious. "Charlie, what you did, not many would have, and now people are paying attention, important people. I want you to understand that your actions, small as they seem, have ripple effects." Charlie's gaze stayed steady. "I know. I just wanted to help her." The sheriff nodded. And that's exactly why it matters. By the time Evelyn was stabilized and prepared for transport, she looked at Charlie with gratitude and something deeper, something like awe. "Repeat it for me one more time," she said, voice hoarse but steady. "Say, I didn't break." Charlie's voice rang clear through the ambulance. "Evelyn Cross didn't break." As the vehicle pulled away, Charlie's small heart pounded with anticipation and unease. He didn't yet know the magnitude of the impact his simple act would have. Victor Cross, hundreds of miles away, was already mobilizing, and the wheels of the Iron Ravens were turning with precision, discipline, and purpose. The story of an 8-year-old boy who chose courage over fear was spreading faster than any of them could have imagined. And as the first rays of morning sun struck the misty woods, Charlie realized something he hadn't fully understood before. Bravery, loyalty, and care weren't just qualities for grown men or motorcycle clubs. They could exist in the smallest, most unexpected hearts. The quiet hum of the ambulance, the distant calls of birds, the rustle of leaves. These were the sounds of a moment suspended between fear and heroism. And Charlie Dawson, 8 years old and resolute, was at the center of it all. Somewhere in the distance, engines roared to life, steel and chrome shining in the morning sun. Brothers of the Iron Ravens MC were preparing to ride, and their destination was clear. A small town in North Carolina, a boy who had stayed, and a woman whose survival was now intertwined with courage, loyalty, and the promise of action. Charlie didn't yet know that the Iron Ravens weren't just coming to honor bravery. They were coming to redefine the meaning of loyalty, heroism, and community. And the story that had begun in a quiet forest clearing was only just unfolding. The morning sky over Asheville was a pale, brittle blue, the kind that promised warmth but still carried a hint of winter's chill. Along Hadley Road, a faint rumble began to stir the quiet suburban streets. At first it was subtle, like distant thunder, but then it grew, the vibration traveling through the asphalt, rattling mailboxes, stirring leaves on the trees. Charlie Dawson, now back at his grandmother Margaret's porch, turned his gaze toward the sound, squinting against the rising sun. Rusty barked and pranced in excitement, sensing the rhythm of engines even before Charlie did. From the horizon, black steel began to appear, glinting in the sunlight. Motorcycles, hundreds of them, rolling in formation with precise, almost military discipline. Chrome shone like lightning bolts. Leather jackets moved as one mass, and the deep roar of engines grew louder with every passing second. Margaret placed a steadying hand on Charlie's shoulder, her eyes narrowing at the sight. "Charlie," she said, her voice calm but edged with concern, "remember what I told you. Courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about moving forward when others would freeze. You're about to see why that lesson matters." Charlie felt his chest tighten. He had no idea what the Iron Ravens MC looked like in person, let alone what they might do. And yet he knew the truth in his heart. This was the result of his decision to stay, to offer help when it was needed. The rumble grew into a chorus, filling the air with power and anticipation. At the lead of the pack rode Victor Cross, his imposing figure framed by the rising sun. His helmet reflected the light in streaks of gold, and his eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the road ahead. Every member of the Iron Ravens rode in silent, disciplined unity, their formation unbroken as they approached the Dawson house. For Victor, this was more than a rescue. It was a demonstration of respect, of gratitude, and of the values his club cherished most: loyalty, courage, and the protection of those in need. As they drew closer, neighbors peeked from behind curtains and fences, whispering to each other. The sound of so many motorcycles together was both terrifying and mesmerizing, a symbol of power and community intertwined. Some moved aside cautiously, wary of the imposing procession, while others remained frozen, captivated by the spectacle. Charlie could feel the weight of eyes on him, yet his small body held steady, his fingers gripping Rusty's leash tightly. Victor slowed as he neared the Dawson property, signaling the formation to break. One by one, the bikes fanned out and parked in careful rows, engines ticking as they cooled. A few younger riders dismounted and moved forward to assist with coordination, their boots crunching on the gravel drive. Charlie's eyes widened as he took in the sight of over 200 riders, each a towering figure of leather and chrome, yet each carrying an air of discipline and purpose rather than menace. Victor removed his helmet and held it under his arm, walking toward Charlie with measured steps. The younger boy felt a mixture of awe and nervousness, but also an unshakable sense of calm. Victor stopped a few feet away and knelt slightly to meet Charlie's gaze. "Charlie Dawson," Victor began, his deep voice steady, yet carrying warmth. "I've heard about what you did. 8 years old and you stayed with Evelyn. You didn't run. You didn't hesitate." Charlie swallowed, feeling the weight of the words. She needed someone to stay," he said simply, "and I was there." Victor nodded, impressed not just by Charlie's courage, but by the clarity of his heart. "That's, something different, something pure. And you've made a difference today, more than you know." Margaret stepped forward, her calm composure intact. "Victor," she said, "you'll understand. Charlie has always been taught not to walk past trouble. Courage isn't measured by size or age. It's in the choice you make." Victor's eyes softened slightly, acknowledging the wisdom in her words. "I see that now. And because of that choice, our brotherhood has something new to honor. Charlie, you're going to ride with us today, at least in spirit. We want you to understand the weight of what you've done and the loyalty it inspires." Charlie's heart raced. He hadn't expected this, hadn't imagined that his simple act of staying with Evelyn would ripple into the world of the Iron Ravens MC. Rusty nudged his leg, as if sensing his excitement and trepidation in equal measure. Meanwhile, across the town, news began to spread. People who had glimpsed the approaching motorcycles whispered to neighbors. Some feared trouble, imagining violence. Others were drawn by curiosity and awe. Yet as Victor's riders began coordinating quietly, helping organize resources to support the local community and ensure safety, the perception started to shift. These were not men seeking chaos. They were a disciplined brotherhood responding to courage, honoring it, and preparing to protect. Charlie watched as Victor signaled riders to check the town's main streets, ensuring a smooth passage, keeping citizens safe and clearing obstacles. Every movement was deliberate, every instruction precise, and for the first time, he realized that bravery could inspire others to act with purpose and integrity. Back at the ambulance, Evelyn had been stabilized and was resting under medical care. Her first words to Charlie were soft, almost a whisper. "Thank you for not leaving." Charlie smiled, feeling the full weight of the morning. "I didn't want to. You needed someone to stay, and I was there." Evelyn's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "Remember my words. I didn't break, and because of you, no one else had to." The rumble of motorcycles continued outside, steady and powerful, a reminder that Charlie's decision had triggered a wave of loyalty and action that extended far beyond the forest clearing. The Iron Ravens were in Asheville now, mobilized, disciplined, and committed to honoring the courage of one small boy who had chosen to do the right thing. Charlie didn't fully understand the scope yet, but he could feel the beginning of something larger than himself, a movement fueled by bravery, compassion, and the profound ripple of one simple choice. The town, the riders, Evelyn, and even himself were all now bound together by that quiet, unwavering courage. The streets of Asheville seemed almost suspended in anticipation. By mid-morning, the Iron Ravens MC had transformed the small town into a quiet, organized web of movement and purpose. Victor Cross, atop his blacked-out Harley with sun glinting off the chrome, signaled riders with precise gestures. Each chapter, each brother, moved as if part of a single organism, yet each retained a palpable sense of individuality, an army of loyalty and skill bound by unspoken codes. Charlie Dawson, standing on the porch of his grandmother, Margaret's house, felt the weight of eyes upon him, not with suspicion, but with admiration. Rusty sat obediently at his side, ears flicking at every vibration in the asphalt. Charlie had never imagined that his decision to stay with Evelyn Cross, to offer her simple water and companionship in a forest clearing, would ripple outward in such a tangible, powerful way. Victor dismounted and approached the Dawson property, his heavy boots crunching against the gravel. He removed his helmet, letting his hair fall loosely, and surveyed Charlie with a mixture of curiosity and respect. "Charlie," he said, voice deep, calm, authoritative, "your actions have already changed how my club sees the world and how this town will see us. But I want you to understand something. Loyalty isn't just about strength. It's about doing what's right when no one else is watching." Charlie nodded, absorbing every word. I, I just wanted to help her. She needed someone to stay." Victor's eyes softened. "That's exactly why it matters. You've demonstrated a kind of courage that can't be trained or bought. It's born from the heart. And now, because of you, we're all paying attention. Every chapter, every writer knows your name." Margaret stepped closer, her calm presence grounding Charlie. "Victor, these are children of the community now," she said, voice steady. Charlie acted out of instinct and moral clarity. He didn't wait for recognition or approval. He did what was right. "That lesson matters more than you know." Victor nodded, recognizing the depth of her wisdom. He signaled to his vice president, a tall man with a weathered face named Garrett. "Coordinate with the local law enforcement, protect the streets, ensure no one is endangered, and set up observation points. Make sure everyone knows our intent is to safeguard, not to threaten." Garrett moved swiftly, relaying instructions via headset to scattered riders. Each action was deliberate. Some patrolled intersections, ensuring safety. Others checked alleyways and side streets. A few coordinated with local deputies to monitor access points to the Dawson property. The Iron Ravens were executing a display of disciplined precision, turning potential fear into reassurance for the community. Charlie watched the riders move, their movements synchronized yet fluid. He could see how they respected one another, how discipline mixed with loyalty formed a rhythm that was both awe-inspiring and calming. Rusty barked once, stepping forward as if sensing the energy of the arriving brotherhood. Victor crouched slightly to meet Charlie's gaze again. "You know, most adults don't act like you did. Fear usually wins. But you, and the 8-year-old, chose action, compassion, and courage. That's a rare thing. And that's why my club is here. Why every engine roaring on Hadley Road is here. You've inspired us." Charlie's cheeks warmed, a mixture of pride and disbelief. "I didn't do anything special," he said quietly. "I just stayed." Victor shook his head. "That's exactly why it's special. Sometimes the smallest acts carry the largest weight." As they spoke, the town began to notice the riders' presence in a new light. Neighbors who had first ducked behind curtains now stepped outside cautiously, observing the precision and order of the motorcycles. Some whispered about Victor Cross and the Iron Ravens, others about the small boy who had stayed by Evelyn Cross. The rumor of bravery, loyalty, and moral clarity spread faster than the engine hums, changing suspicion into curiosity and respect. Meanwhile, Charlie reflected on Evelyn's words from the forest clearing. "I didn't break." That phrase had echoed in his mind ever since, not just for Evelyn, but for the courage he had summoned within himself. It was a message of resilience, one that Victor and his riders now carried forward, connecting the boy's bravery with the club's collective ethos. Garrett returned to Victor's side, reporting updates. "Streets are clear, residents are calm, no interference so far. All riders are in position, awaiting your next instruction." Victor's gaze swept over the town, the motorcycles, and finally, Charlie and Margaret. "Today we protect," he said firmly, "but tomorrow we show the community what loyalty, courage, and accountability look like, through action and service. And that begins with the boy who taught us all something we hadn't realized. Courage doesn't depend on size, age, or status. It depends on the choice you make when it matters most." Charlie felt the weight of that statement settle inside him. Rusty nudged his hand, reminding him that the world outside the porch was vast and unpredictable. Yet for the first time, Charlie realized that one small act, a choice to stay, to care, to act without hesitation, could ignite waves of change far beyond a single forest clearing. Victor stood, signaling the Iron Ravens to prepare for their next move. Engines roared to life again, this time in a more measured, purposeful cadence. The riders weren't just arriving, they were preparing to act, to protect, and to honor courage wherever it had appeared. Charlie Dawson, 8 years old and resolute, understood one truth more clearly than ever. Bravery, integrity, and loyalty were contagious. And with the Iron Ravens mobilized, the town of Asheville was about to witness the ripple effect of a single, powerful choice. By midday, Asheville had shifted from quiet suburban calm to a town buzzing with tension and curiosity. Word had spread quickly that Victor Cross and the Iron Ravens MC were in town, not for chaos, but because of a boy who had acted with extraordinary courage. Charlie Dawson, now sitting on the front steps of Margaret's porch, felt the weight of every glance cast his way. People whispered as they walked past, some in awe, some in cautious uncertainty, but all eyes lingered. Rusty leaned against Charlie's leg, his fur damp from the morning dew, ears twitching at the distant echo of engines warming again. Charlie didn't look away. He understood that the actions he had taken, staying with Evelyn Cross, offering her water, and keeping her calm, were now part of something much larger than himself. Margaret placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Charlie," she said, her voice low and calm, "do you understand? You've changed more than just a life in the forest. You've shifted the way an entire group, a whole community, sees bravery, loyalty, and compassion. That's not something everyone gets to experience." Charlie nodded, his small chest rising and falling with a mix of excitement and anxiety. "I didn't think anyone would care," he admitted softly. "I just wanted to help her." Victor Cross, having directed the placement of the Iron Ravens, walked up the driveway, his leather boots heavy and deliberate against the gravel. He removed his helmet, letting the sun catch on his dark hair and the gold-tinted goggles resting on his collar. His eyes, sharp and calculating, softened slightly as they met Charlie's. "You understand what you've done, don't you, Charlie?" Victor asked, his voice low but firm. "Most people would have run, but you, an 8-year-old, stayed. That's courage." Charlie looked down, gripping Rusty's leash. She needed someone, and I was there." Victor's lips curved into a small, approving smile. "Exactly. And because of that, every brother in the Iron Ravens knows your name. Every chapter, every rider has been briefed. Your courage has sparked something larger than any of us expected." At that moment, Garrett, Victor's vice president, approached with a tablet in hand. "Victor, hospital's ready. Evelyn's been stabilized and is awaiting transfer to the main ward. All staff cleared the immediate area for privacy. Security protocols in place. We can move in quietly without alarming the town." Victor nodded, signaling a small group of riders to accompany him. "Charlie," he said, lowering his voice, "I want you to come with us. You've already been part of this story, and now I want you to see the full scope. But remember, stay close, stay calm, and trust the process." Charlie's heart raced, but he didn't hesitate. Margaret gave him a nod of encouragement, the kind that conveyed both caution and pride. Rusty barked once, as if understanding that the journey ahead was important. Charlie climbed onto a small seat Victor had arranged near the lead rider, gripping the handlebars carefully, while Garrett gave him a reassuring pat. The ride to the hospital was a mix of thrill and solemnity. The Iron Ravens moved in perfect formation through Asheville's streets, weaving past curious onlookers who stopped to watch the spectacle. Engines rumbled with controlled power, echoing off buildings and filling the town with a sense of disciplined energy. Charlie felt the vibration under his feet, the wind against his face, and for a moment, the fear of the morning was replaced with awe at the organization and unity surrounding him. As they approached the hospital, Victor raised a hand, signaling the riders to form a protective perimeter. Every member moved with precision, ensuring that the streets were clear, that pedestrians remained safe, and that the ambulance carrying Evelyn could arrive without interference. Charlie watched it all with wide eyes, realizing that his single decision in the woods had triggered an operation that combined skill, loyalty, and moral clarity. The ambulance doors opened, and Charlie caught sight of Evelyn resting on a stretcher, her injuries bandaged, her face pale but calm. She looked up and, despite her ordeal, managed a faint smile. "Charlie," she whispered, her voice raw but clear, You stayed. You didn't leave. Remember that. Charlie nodded, feeling the gravity of her words sink in. I couldn't leave, he said simply. You needed someone, and I was there. Victor approached the stretcher, kneeling slightly to meet Evelyn's gaze. You've done more than survive today, Evelyn, he said quietly. You've inspired courage in the youngest and strongest alike. And the boy who stayed with you? He's already part of this family now. Charlie, your bravery is recognized. Evelyn's eyes glistened. Tell him. Thank you, she whispered, her hand reaching weakly toward Charlie. He took it gently, the warmth of her grip grounding him in the importance of his role. Outside, the Iron Ravens maintained their silent vigil, engines idling with purpose, ready to respond to any threat. Charlie glanced around at the riders, men and women bound by loyalty, discipline, and moral clarity, and realized the ripple effect of his choice. A simple act of courage had brought together an entire community, bridging fear and respect, action and protection. Margaret stood beside him, her eyes soft but resolute. Remember this, Charlie. Courage is contagious, and today you've started something that will continue far beyond the forest, far beyond this town. Charlie felt a mixture of pride and humility. Rusty nudged his hand, and he patted the dog's head gently. The events of the morning had set a chain of actions in motion, and for the first time, Charlie understood that one small, unwavering choice could echo into a world far larger than a single boy or a quiet forest clearing. And as Victor and the Iron Ravens prepared to escort Evelyn into the hospital safely, Charlie realized the truth of his grandmother's words. Courage before fear isn't just a lesson, it's a responsibility. The morning sun climbed higher, casting warm light across Asheville as the Iron Ravens MC maintained their disciplined formation around the hospital. Engines ticked softly as members patrolled the perimeter, the faint smell of leather and motor oil mingling with the crisp scent of blooming spring flowers. Charlie Dawson, still holding Rusty's leash, watched with wide eyes as Victor Cross coordinated the riders with calm precision. Each movement was deliberate, every signal met with exact execution, a choreography of loyalty, skill, and purpose. Victor crouched beside Charlie, his dark eyes scanning the surrounding streets. You see, Charlie, the power of choice isn't just in the act itself. It's in the ripple it creates. Today, you've shown what courage looks like, and now others are following, consciously or not. Charlie looked at the motorcycles lined along the hospital's driveway. They're helping? He asked, disbelief and curiosity mingling in his voice. Victor nodded. Every rider here is here because of you. They respect courage, even in someone your age. They're learning from your example that protecting others, being loyal, and acting with integrity matters as much as anything else. Meanwhile, the town itself had begun to notice. People peeked out of windows, some with caution, others with fascination. Asheville was small enough that news spread quickly, and the story of an 8-year-old boy who had stayed by a woman's side in danger had reached far beyond the forest. Residents whispered among themselves, exchanging glances of awe and tentative admiration for the unexpected heroism. Charlie felt a twinge of pride, but also a deep sense of responsibility. Every pair of eyes, every whispered word, was now connected to him, his decision, and the actions of the Iron Ravens. Rusty nudged his leg as if reminding him that, despite all the chaos and attention, he had done the right thing. Victor stood and signaled to Garrett, his vice president, who immediately relayed instructions to the riders. Set up observation points along the main streets, ensure hospital access is secure, and maintain visibility to reassure the public. Remember, we're here to protect, not to intimidate. Garrett moved swiftly, dispatching teams to intersections and alleyways. Riders parked their motorcycles strategically, some standing guard, others subtly engaging with townspeople to convey safety and solidarity. The Iron Ravens were a presence both commanding and protective, a living example of discipline and moral responsibility. Charlie observed quietly, learning without words. He saw the respect between the riders, the mutual trust, and the unspoken rules that guided their actions. It was a lesson in courage, not just in staying with Evelyn Cross, but in how to use strength responsibly, to help rather than harm. Margaret stepped beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "Remember, Charlie," she said, voice calm but firm, "courage is contagious, and today your actions are teaching more than you realize. Victor's men are learning from you. The town is learning from you, and even Evelyn, through you, will see the power of steadfastness." Charlie nodded, absorbing her words, feeling the enormity of what had begun in the forest earlier that morning. The Iron Ravens were more than a motorcycle club. They were a network of loyalty and action, now responding to the quiet heroism of a single boy. Inside the hospital, Evelyn's condition was steadily improving. She rested quietly under the attentive care of nurses, who marveled at her resilience. She spoke softly with Angela, her primary nurse, recounting the boy's bravery. "Charlie stayed," Evelyn said, voice low and raw with emotion. "He didn't run. He offered me water, held my hand, and refused to leave. Remember his name. That kid, that kid is going to matter." Back outside, Charlie and Victor continued to discuss the importance of responsibility and courage. "One choice," Victor said, "can set off a chain of actions that affect far more people than you might ever imagine. Today, your choice kept Evelyn safe. Tomorrow, it may inspire others to act with integrity and loyalty in ways no one sees coming." Charlie felt a warmth in his chest, a combination of pride and the gravity of understanding his impact. Rusty barked once, alerting him to the presence of townspeople slowly emerging from homes, curious but hesitant. The Iron Ravens maintained their positions, blending discipline with approachability, signaling that they were there to protect and serve, not to dominate. Victor smiled, noticing Charlie's focus. "See, Charlie? This is how courage spreads, not just through words but through actions. What you did in the forest inspired these men to act with purpose, and now the town sees it too. Your bravery has changed the dynamic entirely." Charlie nodded, the lessons sinking in deeper than ever. The quiet boy who had walked into the woods with Rusty and a simple phone had sparked a ripple effect, reaching far beyond what he could have imagined. And as Victor and the Iron Ravens prepared for the next step, bringing Evelyn safely to her family, solidifying the trust between the club and the community, and demonstrating the moral power of loyalty and action, Charlie understood that courage truly had a way of expanding outward, touching everyone it encountered. The sun climbed higher, and the town of Asheville, with its streets filled with whispers, awe, and cautious respect, was beginning to witness the power of one simple choice. A choice to stay, to help, and to act with courage, no matter the risk. By mid-afternoon, the hospital corridors were quiet, the low hum of activity blending with the distant beeping of monitors and the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes on linoleum floors. Evelyn Cross lay in a private room, the bandages on her shoulder and wrist meticulous and precise, but her eyes told a story of exhaustion mixed with quiet relief. Charlie Dawson sat in a chair nearby, Rusty at his feet, watching over her with the same unwavering focus he had in the forest. Angela, Evelyn's nurse, adjusted the pillows behind her and smiled faintly at Charlie. "You've been incredible," she said softly. "Most adults wouldn't have stayed the way you did." Charlie shrugged, his small hands gripping Rusty's leash. "She needed someone. I didn't run. I stayed." Evelyn's lips curved into a tired but genuine smile. "You've got courage in your heart, Charlie. You've shown me something I needed, more than I realized." She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Remember this moment, not just for me, but for yourself. It's a lesson in who you are." Outside the hospital, the streets were alive with the presence of the Iron Ravens MC. Victor Cross moved among his riders, issuing instructions with calm authority. Garrett, his vice president, checked in regularly, ensuring that their presence was felt as protective and reassuring rather than threatening. Each rider positioned along key intersections and town entry points, offering a visible promise of safety. Charlie stepped to the window, observing the precision of the operation. Rows of motorcycles gleamed in the sunlight, men and women moving with practiced confidence. The community's initial fear was giving way to curiosity, then cautious respect, as the Iron Ravens demonstrated that discipline, loyalty, and moral responsibility were at the core of their purpose. Victor appeared beside him, his presence both commanding and reassuring. "Charlie, you're seeing the ripple effect of your choice," he said. "What you did in that clearing didn't just save Evelyn. It inspired an entire brotherhood to act with honor and integrity. And now the town is watching, learning, and beginning to understand the value of courage paired with responsibility." Charlie glanced at the riders outside, then back at Evelyn. "They're helping?" he asked, a note of awe in his voice. Victor nodded. "Every one of them. And it all started because you stayed. Courage before fear. That's a lesson that doesn't come with age. It comes with the heart." Back inside, Evelyn turned her attention to Charlie, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "Promise me you'll always remember today, Charlie. Not just for me, but for the choice you made. You didn't walk past trouble. You faced it, and in doing so, you reminded all of us what loyalty and bravery look like." Charlie felt the words settle into him like a stone dropped into still water. He understood that bravery wasn't just about facing fear. It was about making a choice that could echo far beyond one moment, far beyond one person. Rusty nudged his leg and Charlie patted the dog's head, grounding himself in the quiet gravity of the afternoon. Victor's voice called from the hallway. "Charlie, it's time for the next part. We're taking Evelyn back to her family, and I want you to see how far a simple act of courage can reach." The ride to the Cross estate was orderly and precise. Charlie, sitting close to Victor, gripped the seat, feeling both the thrill of movement and the steady hum of purpose surrounding him. Every turn, every signal, was executed with care. The streets of Asheville, once quiet and uncertain, now carried the sound of engines as a testament to loyalty, courage, and community. When they arrived at the estate, Evelyn's family was waiting, their expressions a mix of relief, awe, and profound gratitude. Victor and his riders provided a protective perimeter, ensuring the transition was smooth, safe, and dignified. Charlie stepped forward, holding Rusty's leash, and watched as Evelyn embraced her family, her strength tempered by the ordeal she had endured, and the unwavering courage of one small boy. Victor crouched beside Charlie once more. "See what happens when someone acts with integrity, Charlie? Loyalty, courage, and moral action aren't just words. They ripple outward, touching everyone involved. Today you've shown the town, the club, and Evelyn's family the power of a simple choice." Charlie nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. "I just stayed," he said quietly, the truth of his actions resonating more fully than ever. Victor's eyes softened with respect. "And that's more than enough. Sometimes the smallest gestures, steadfastness, compassion, a refusal to abandon someone in need, create the largest waves. You've started a wave that will continue to grow, Charlie, and the Iron Ravens, the town, and Evelyn herself will carry it forward because of you." As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the estate's manicured lawns, Charlie Dawson realized something profound. Bravery, integrity, and loyalty were contagious. One small act, staying with Evelyn, offering her comfort and safety, had inspired an entire motorcycle club, shifted the perception of an entire community, and reminded a young boy that courage truly begins in the heart. And as the Iron Ravens quietly prepared to leave for their next mission, maintaining safety and order across the town, Charlie understood that today wasn't just about one rescue. It was the beginning of a legacy of moral courage, loyalty, and collective heroism that would ripple far beyond Asheville, carried on the engines and leather of a disciplined, purpose-driven brotherhood. The next morning, Asheville stirred slowly. A crisp breeze carried the scent of fresh paint and sawdust through the streets near the fairgrounds. Charlie Dawson, standing on the front porch of his grandmother Margaret's house, felt a mix of anticipation and excitement as he watched motorcycles arriving in measured succession. The Iron Ravens MC had returned, not with urgency this time, but with purpose. Each engine's growl, each chrome gleam catching the morning sun, signaled discipline, respect, and a mission of community service. Victor Cross rode at the front, his presence commanding yet composed. Garrett followed closely, coordinating the riders as they began setting up stations and organizing supplies for repair and painting projects around the fairgrounds. Charlie observed everything carefully, Rusty by his side, his small frame filled with a growing sense of pride. What had begun as a rescue in the woods was now transforming into a visible, tangible effort to support the town. Charlie, Victor said, pulling up alongside him, what you did yesterday started something much bigger. Today, the town will see firsthand the values you demonstrated: courage, loyalty, and responsibility. Watch and learn. Every action counts. Charlie nodded, gripping Rusty's leash. He could see men and women from the Iron Ravens lifting lumber, painting fences, repairing benches, and carefully arranging tables. Their movements were precise, organized, and deliberate, yet there was an unmistakable energy of pride and care in every task. The community began to notice. Curious townspeople emerged from houses, their initial fear replaced by awe and cautious optimism. A few residents approached hesitantly, offering refreshments and small gestures of thanks. Carol Briggs, a middle-aged woman who ran the local bakery, handed sandwiches to a group of riders. It's remarkable, she said, eyes wide. You came here to help because of that boy? That little one? He stayed when no one else would. Charlie felt his heart swell. Rusty barked once, nudging his leg as if acknowledging the moment. Yes, Charlie said simply. I stayed. He, I mean, she needed someone, and I was there. Victor's eyes softened, glancing at Charlie. That's all it takes to inspire people. Courage before fear. You didn't just save Evelyn. You reminded everyone what loyalty and moral courage look like. That's what this is about. Every action you see here, helping, repairing, protecting, carries your ripple forward. The town slowly began to engage more actively. People who had initially kept their distance began offering assistance, handing tools, painting supplies, and even helping clear debris. Margaret Dawson, standing near Charlie, observed quietly, her hands folded, a faint smile on her lips. See, Charlie? When one person acts with integrity, others follow. Courage can change the entire atmosphere of a town. Evelyn, now in a wheelchair, arrived at the fairgrounds accompanied by medical staff. She smiled faintly at Charlie, holding a photograph of the oak tree where he had first offered her water. This is where it started, she whispered. You stayed. That boy stayed. And look at this. Look at everyone here. Charlie held the photograph reverently, seeing the tangible link between the forest clearing and the unfolding efforts. I didn't do it alone, he said, looking at Victor and the riders. They're helping too. Victor approached Evelyn, kneeling to her level. No, Charlie's courage started this, but our actions now honor that courage. Everyone sees that doing what's right isn't just an idea, it's action. Today, Asheville witnesses the impact of a single choice. Across the fairgrounds, Terry Grabb, a longtime resident known for his wary disposition, observed the unfolding scene with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Margaret, noticing him, walked over and addressed him calmly but firmly. Terry, this is what bravery looks like. That boy didn't turn away. He stayed. And these riders are responding not with intimidation, but with responsibility. Courage is contagious. Terry nodded slowly, a subtle shift in expression, and eventually offered to help Reese, a local carpenter, load lumber. It was a quiet but profound acknowledgement that the ripple of moral courage was reaching beyond the boy and the riders into the broader community. Charlie watched the progress, the smiles, the cooperation, and felt an understanding settle in him. Fear could be overcome, courage could inspire, and the choices made by one person, even a child, could alter the hearts and actions of many. Victor signaled the riders to pause briefly and gather near the center of the fairgrounds. Everyone, he began, voice carrying with authority, this is why we ride together. Loyalty, courage, and responsibility aren't just words, they are actions. Today, Asheville sees what happens when one small act of bravery sparks collective heroism. Charlie, standing with Rusty at his side, felt a mixture of awe and pride. The Iron Ravens had transformed the town, not through fear or dominance, but through organized, disciplined acts of service inspired by his decision to stay in the woods. Evelyn wheeled closer to him, her eyes bright despite the fatigue. "Remember this, Charlie," she said softly. "The courage you showed is the same courage that changes hearts. It doesn't matter if it's a boy, a club, or a whole town. One choice can change everything." Charlie nodded, absorbing the lesson, feeling the ripple of his actions spreading farther than he could have imagined. And as the Iron Ravens resumed work, painting, repairing, and protecting, the town of Asheville began to see that courage, loyalty, and moral responsibility were not just ideals. They were living, breathing actions sparked by an 8-year-old boy who refused to walk past trouble. As the afternoon sun slanted low across Asheville, the fairgrounds had transformed into a hive of organized energy. Paintbrushes swept across wooden fences, hammers tapped rhythmically against boards, and the faint scent of fresh timber mixed with the lingering aroma of motor oil and warm asphalt. Charlie Dawson stood on the edge of the activity, Rusty at his side, feeling the significance of the moment settle around him. What had begun as a small act of courage in the woods was now unfolding into a day of community and discipline. Victor Cross approached Charlie once more, removing his helmet to reveal a weathered face softened by sunlight and careful observation. He crouched slightly, bringing himself to the boy's level. "Charlie," he said, his deep voice carrying a mixture of authority and warmth, "I want you to understand something. What you did wasn't just brave. It was extraordinary, and it's inspiring more than just our club." Charlie looked up at him, cheeks flushed from the warmth and the exertion of watching the work unfold. I, I just stayed," he said softly. "She needed someone, and I was there." Victor nodded. "Exactly. And that simple choice, it's rippling outward. You've reminded these riders why we exist, not just for ourselves, but for moments like this. Courage and loyalty, when combined, can change everything." He gestured toward the workers across the fairgrounds, noting how neighbors had joined to offer water, sandwiches, and assistance with heavy lifting. "See? The town is noticing. They're realizing that strength and compassion can coexist, and that your courage started it." Charlie's eyes followed a group of riders helping elderly residents lift tables and benches. Some children hesitated at the edge, then slowly joined, picking up small tools or carrying paint cans. Rusty barked once, nudging Charlie's hand, as if urging him to see the impact of what he'd done. Victor's gaze softened as he observed the boy. "Charlie, what you've started here isn't about recognition or reward. It's about integrity, responsibility, and choosing to act when it matters most. And the town, they're beginning to see that too. People who were afraid yesterday are now watching respect and community in action." Charlie nodded, absorbing the lesson. "I didn't think anyone would notice," he admitted. I wanted to help." "That's the point," Victor said firmly. "The measure of bravery isn't applause. It's the choice to do the right thing when no one's watching. And the ripple effect, that's what changes the world around you." At that moment, Evelyn Cross, still recovering but steady in a wheelchair, approached Charlie. Her eyes glistened with gratitude. "Charlie," she whispered, holding a small photograph in her hands. "This is where it all began. You stayed, you didn't run, and now, look at what's happening." Charlie glanced at the photo of the oak tree in the woods, the water bottle at its base, and then at the bustling fairgrounds. I didn't do it alone," he said, a quiet smile forming. "They're helping too." Victor's hand rested lightly on Charlie's shoulder. "And that's why it matters. Courage inspires loyalty. Loyalty inspires action, and action inspires change. You've shown the Iron Ravens and this town that one choice can ripple farther than we ever expect." Across the fairgrounds, Terry Grabb, once skeptical of the riders, now moved carefully to assist Reese in loading lumber. Margaret Dawson watched silently, her composure calm but her eyes filled with quiet pride. "See, Charlie? Your bravery is changing hearts. People are seeing that courage paired with moral action can alter perspectives, even fears." Charlie glanced around, taking in the scene. Riders painting fences alongside townspeople. neighbors chatting with members of the Iron Ravens, children learning the value of teamwork and responsibility. He felt a profound sense of connection, realizing that one small act, a decision to stay with Evelyn in the woods, had catalyzed an entire community into action. Victor's voice carried across the fairgrounds. Everyone, pause for a moment. The Iron Ravens halted, standing in neat rows, their motorcycles forming a protective perimeter. Today is about honor, courage, and responsibility. Remember, every action you take, no matter how small, has impact. And this boy, Charlie Dawson, has reminded us all of that lesson. Charlie's cheeks warmed at the acknowledgement, yet he felt no vanity, only the weight of responsibility. Rusty sat obediently at his feet, tail wagging slightly, sensing the significance of the moment. But amidst the harmony, a subtle tension lingered. Margaret's phone buzzed briefly with an alert she didn't recognize. A cryptic message. "He's watching. Be ready." She glanced at Victor, whose expression tightened ever so slightly, acknowledging the possibility of a new challenge. Victor approached Charlie and Margaret, voice calm but precise. "Keep focused, stay aware. Today we demonstrate the strength of loyalty and courage. Tomorrow may bring tests of that strength. But remember, every choice matters, and the courage of a boy in the forest has already shifted the balance." Charlie absorbed the words, understanding that bravery was not a one-time act, but a responsibility that continued as long as the ripple extended outward. Rusty nudged his hand once more, and he patted the dog's head, feeling the steady rhythm of the motorcycles and the quiet determination of Victor and the Iron Ravens surrounding him. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the fairgrounds, Charlie realized the power of one simple decision: to stay, to act with moral clarity, and to inspire others. The ripple had grown into a wave, and it was only just beginning. The sky had turned a soft, muted orange as late afternoon stretched toward evening. The Iron Ravens MC continued their work at the fairgrounds, but a subtle shift in energy rippled through the riders. Victor Cross walked among them, his eyes scanning the horizon. Noting the movement of vehicles on the outskirts of town, the quiet shifts of shadows between buildings, and the faint whispers of concern that passed among residents. Charlie Dawson, sitting on the steps with Rusty at his side, felt it too, a change in the air. It wasn't fear exactly, but a tension that hinted at something unexpected. He had grown accustomed to the hum of engines and the organized precision of the Iron Ravens. But now every distant sound seemed amplified. Every glance from a passing neighbor weighted with curiosity or concern. Victor crouched beside Charlie, lowering his voice. "Charlie, you remember what I told you about courage and responsibility, right?" Charlie nodded. "Yes, it's not just about being brave. It's about doing the right thing, even if no one notices." Victor's expression hardened slightly. "Exactly. But sometimes being brave also means staying alert. Courage can attract attention, both good and bad. Today, your actions have inspired a town and a club, but it may also attract those who are watching for weakness or opportunity." Charlie looked toward the far edge of the fairgrounds, where a line of trees marked the boundary of the town's outskirts. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A dark vehicle slowly approaching, its windows reflecting the fading light. He tensed, gripping Rusty's leash. Victor noticed the movement as well. He turned to Garrett, his vice president. "Secure the perimeter. Make sure all residents are inside the safe zones. Watch every approach. Quiet, controlled. We are not escalating. We are protecting." The riders shifted seamlessly into new positions, forming an unbroken ring around the fairgrounds. Engines ticked softly as motorcycles were moved strategically, a subtle but unmistakable demonstration of presence and authority. The town, which had been growing increasingly comfortable with the Iron Ravens' disciplined community work, now felt the weight of vigilance. Charlie watched, fascinated. He had never realized that courage could inspire action on such a scale. The simple choice to stay with Evelyn Cross in the woods had set off a chain reaction. The club was here, the town was participating, and now even potential threats were met with calm, measured response rather than panic. Margaret Dawson appeared at his side, her voice quiet but firm. "Charlie, remember what you've learned. Courage isn't just the initial act. It's the awareness, the vigilance, and the responsibility that follow. That's what keeps people safe and preserves what's been built. Charlie nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Rusty barked once, alerting him to movement near the tree line. He leaned forward, peering through the dimming light, and saw the shadow of a figure slipping closer to the fairgrounds. Victor stepped beside Charlie, his eyes narrowing. "That's why we stay disciplined," he said. "Even heroes attract attention. And the Iron Ravens don't just respond with force, they respond with thought, strategy, and protection. Watch carefully." Garrett moved swiftly to intercept the approaching figure, signaling to two riders to flank the area quietly. The stranger slowed, assessing the visible presence of disciplined riders and organized barriers. It was a subtle standoff, the tension palpable but contained. Charlie felt a surge of understanding. Courage wasn't just about being in the right place at the right time. It was about foresight, discipline, and the wisdom to act responsibly. Every rider's movement was a lesson in how to handle the unexpected, a demonstration of moral action layered with practical strategy. The figure hesitated, then slowly turned away, retreating into the shadows. The town remained calm, unaware of the potential danger that had brushed so close. Charlie exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and a renewed sense of purpose. Victor placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Charlie, today shows something critical. Courage inspires, but it also teaches vigilance. Your choice to stay yesterday set everything into motion, and now you see the next stage, protecting, observing, and guiding." Charlie glanced around at the riders, neighbors, and volunteers who had gathered, their combined efforts forming a protective, cohesive unit. I, I think I understand," he said quietly. "It's not just staying with someone, it's helping them, protecting them, and making sure everyone is safe." Victor smiled faintly. "Exactly. And you, Charlie Dawson, have taught all of us a lesson we won't forget. That's why the Iron Ravens are here, why the town is participating, and why Evelyn is safe. Courage isn't isolated. It grows, spreads, and protects." As the sun dipped behind the horizon, the fairgrounds were alive with purpose. Riders continued their work, neighbors assisted with repairs, and Charlie Dawson, 8 years old, understood the profound truth. One small act of moral courage could inspire an entire community to act with discipline, loyalty, and collective heroism. Rusty nudged Charlie's hand, and he patted the dog gently, feeling the rhythm of engines, the organized movement, and the quiet strength of moral responsibility in action. And somewhere in the shadows, he knew that the vigilance and courage of today had already begun to set the stage for challenges yet to come. Evening had settled over Asheville, casting long shadows across the fairgrounds. The Iron Ravens MC continued their work with quiet purpose, their motorcycles parked neatly in lines that gleamed under the fading light. Riders moved with practiced precision, coordinating repairs, painting fences, and assisting townspeople who had grown increasingly comfortable in their presence. The air buzzed with a mixture of motor oil, fresh paint, and the faint scent of blooming jasmine carried from nearby gardens. Charlie Dawson sat near the center of the fairgrounds, Rusty at his side, observing the rhythm of the work. He watched neighbors slowly engage more fully, their apprehension replaced by curiosity and respect. Children were helping carry paint cans, adults were lifting lumber with the guidance of the riders, and even previously skeptical residents, like Terry Grabb, had joined in, showing that the ripple effect of courage and loyalty was now influencing an entire town. Evelyn Cross, though still weak, wheeled herself carefully among the volunteers. Her eyes glimmered with gratitude as she watched Charlie and the Iron Ravens collaborate. She spoke softly to Angela, her nurse, who accompanied her. "Charlie stayed. He didn't run. And now look at them. He's inspiring more than I imagined. That boy's going to matter." Charlie felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had stayed in the woods because it was the right thing to do, and now he was witnessing how one small act could ignite a cascade of moral courage. Rusty nudged his leg, reminding him that every action mattered, and that bravery extended beyond fear to vigilance and care. Victor Cross approached Charlie and Evelyn, his expression calm but authoritative. Charlie, you're seeing something important, he said. Courage and integrity don't exist in isolation. They grow when others respond to them. The town is learning from your example, and our riders are learning from yours. This is how loyalty, bravery, and moral responsibility spread. Charlie nodded, absorbing the weight of Victor's words. I, I just stayed, he admitted quietly. I didn't run. She needed someone, and I was there. Victor's eyes softened. And that's why it matters. Courage is contagious, Charlie. What you've done is setting the stage for actions that extend far beyond the forest, far beyond this fairground. Every person watching, every rider responding, is now part of this lesson. Across the fairgrounds, townspeople had started to actively assist, guided by the disciplined movements of the riders. Neighbors were handing tools, helping paint fences, clearing debris, and even arranging tables and benches. The previously wary community had begun to accept the Iron Ravens as partners in rebuilding and care, rather than as outsiders to fear. Charlie turned to Evelyn, who held a small photograph of the oak tree where he had first offered her water. This is where it started, she whispered. And now look at this. The community, the riders, everything. It's because of you. Charlie held the photo reverently, feeling the connection between the forest clearing and the fairgrounds. I didn't do it alone, he said softly. They're helping too. Victor crouched beside him again. Exactly. And this is the lesson. A single act of courage can inspire a network of loyalty and action, but you also need to understand vigilance. Courage attracts attention, and attention sometimes brings challenges. That's why we remain disciplined and aware. As the sun continued to dip toward the horizon, Victor signaled to Garrett. Riders began positioning themselves strategically around the perimeter, subtly but visibly ensuring safety. The community continued to engage, but every resident now understood that the Iron Raven's presence was protective, moral, and intentional. Charlie observed quietly, learning without words. He saw how courage inspired loyalty, loyalty enabled action, and action cultivated trust. Each small task, painting a fence, carrying lumber, assisting neighbors, was now part of a larger moral tapestry, woven together by a boy's decision to stay in the forest. Margaret Dawson appeared at his side, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Charlie, she said, voice calm, this is why bravery matters. It's not just about facing danger, it's about inspiring others to act with integrity. You've started something here that will grow for years to come. Charlie nodded, watching as Evelyn gently guided children in painting sections of the fairground fences. Rusty barked softly, as if agreeing with the lesson of the day. Charlie realized that bravery, vigilance, and moral responsibility were not isolated events. They were choices that expanded outward, influencing everyone who witnessed them. Victor's voice carried across the fairgrounds. Riders, pause for a moment. Look at what we've accomplished together. Remember that integrity and courage are not words. They are actions, and Charlie Dawson has shown us the ripple effect one choice can create. Never forget it. Charlie's eyes met Victor's, and he felt a deep understanding settle inside him. Courage had a ripple effect. One decision to act, one refusal to abandon someone in need, could inspire loyalty, responsibility, and moral action in ways no one could fully anticipate. As the evening shadows stretched long across the fairgrounds, the Iron Ravens MC continued their work. The community participated with growing confidence. And Charlie Dawson understood that his single act of courage had become a force that would continue to grow, touch lives, and shape the town of Asheville in ways far beyond what he had imagined. The morning sun broke over Asheville with a soft golden glow, casting long, warm rays across Hadley Road. Charlie Dawson stepped onto the porch with Rusty at his side, feeling the faint hum of engines in the distance. Hundreds of motorcycles lined the streets, black steel glinting in the morning light. The Iron Ravens MC had returned, not in urgency, but in full recognition of the boy who had sparked a wave of courage, loyalty, and moral action. Victor Cross rode at the head of the formation, his imposing figure calm and purposeful. Charlie felt his chest tighten, not from fear this time, but from awe. The Iron Ravens were here for him, Not just for Evelyn, not just for the town, but to honor the courage of one small boy who had refused to walk past trouble. "Charlie Dawson," Victor said, removing his helmet as he approached, "today you see the full impact of your choice. Courage is contagious, and loyalty grows when it is inspired. You've set this into motion, and now it culminates." Charlie felt Rusty nuzzle his hand, and he patted the dog's head, grounding himself. I didn't do anything special," he said softly. "I just stayed." Victor's eyes softened. "That's the point. Sometimes the smallest acts carry the largest weight. Today, your courage is recognized not just by your town, but by those who value honor and integrity above all else." Margaret Dawson, standing beside her grandson, smiled faintly, her hand resting on his shoulder. "Charlie, what you've done isn't just bravery. It's a lesson in moral courage. And now the town and these riders will remember it for a lifetime." As Victor signaled, the Iron Ravens began organizing a public demonstration of their ongoing commitment to the community. Riders assisted in final touches at the fairgrounds, helping neighbors repair fences, repaint benches, and set up tables for local gatherings. Evelyn Cross, now standing with support, wheeled herself into the center, holding a small photograph of the oak tree where Charlie had first offered her water. "This is where it began," Evelyn said, her voice strong despite the fatigue of the past ordeal. "Charlie stayed when no one else would, and because of him, this community and these riders have come together. That boy is going to matter, and today proves it." Charlie held the photograph carefully, the image of the forest clearing and the water bottle at its base connecting him to the present scene. I didn't do it alone," he said quietly. "They're helping too." Victor crouched to Charlie's level, presenting a small custom-made patch. "Charlie Dawson, this patch reads, 'Courage before fear.' It's a recognition of the bravery, loyalty, and moral integrity you've demonstrated. No one younger than you has ever received this honor in our brotherhood. Wear it proudly." Charlie's eyes widened, and he gently took the patch, holding it close. Rusty barked softly, tail wagging in approval. "Thank you," Charlie whispered. Margaret offered Victor a cup of coffee, and he accepted with a small nod, acknowledging her composure and the weight of the moment. "Your grandson's courage has changed more than a town. It's inspired loyalty, trust, and respect in ways we didn't expect." Suddenly, a faint buzz from Margaret's phone drew their attention. A cryptic text had arrived. "All clear. You acted well. Watch over them." Victor read it, his expression calm but alert. This confirms that vigilance, courage, and moral action are always connected. "Charlie, today you've seen the full cycle. An act of courage inspires action, which influences the community, and that ripple is felt beyond what we can see." The fairgrounds buzzed with energy as neighbors joined the Iron Ravens, forming a bridge of cooperation and trust. Volunteers carried lumber, painted fences, and prepared spaces for community gatherings. Even Terry Grabb, previously skeptical, worked alongside Reese and the riders, demonstrating a shift in perspective inspired by Charlie's bravery. Evelyn, standing tall with support, handed Charlie the photograph of the oak tree, now framed with the empty water bottle at its base. "Keep this," she said, "a reminder of what courage can do. You stayed, you helped, and because of you, others have learned the same lesson." Charlie nodded, feeling the full weight of the morning, the forest, and the ripple his single choice had created. Rusty nudged his leg again, reminding him of the small but profound role he had played. Victor addressed the gathered riders and townspeople. "Today demonstrates something powerful. Courage, loyalty, and moral responsibility aren't limited by age. They're choices, and when someone chooses rightly, the impact can extend far beyond imagination. Charlie Dawson has shown all of us what true bravery means, and this town now carries that lesson forward." The engines roared softly as the Iron Ravens prepared to depart, leaving behind a community transformed not by fear, but by cooperation, trust, and respect. Charlie watched them ride away, his small heart filled with pride and understanding. Margaret squeezed his shoulder. "Remember, Charlie, courage never ends with a single act. It continues in every choice you make, every person you inspire, every community you touch. You've started a legacy today. Charlie looked at the fairgrounds, at Evelyn, at the neighbors working alongside the riders, and finally down at Rusty. I understand, Grandma, he said. I stayed, I helped, and it didn't end there. It just kept spreading. The sun dipped fully below the horizon, bathing Asheville in soft twilight. The Iron Ravens MC had departed, the town carried forward by the lessons of courage and loyalty, and Charlie Dawson, just 8 years old, understood the profound truth. One small act of bravery, performed with integrity and compassion, could create a ripple that changed everything. And as the quiet hum of the evening settled over the town, Charlie smiled, knowing that courage, once ignited, could never truly fade.